think Schlereth just picked the Eagles as he's sitting down here on the home of the Cowboys with us? Did you just pick the Eagles to win it?
100, yeah.
Wait, DJ, let's get his volume.
Okay.
See, that's what happens when you pick Philly. Yeah. They cut your mic off just like that.
All right, let's. Oh, there we go. There we go. Look at that. Look at what a technician. I mean, just all over it. I picked Philly 100, Kansas City nothing. Listen, man. Yes, I started in Washington, and I'm a Bronco, or Redskin, but I finished in Denver as a Bronco, and I hate the Chiefs with the white hot intensity of 1,000 suns.
Okay,
so I could never ever. And I like Andy Reid. And it's hard not to like Mahomes. I like Mahomes, but I want them to lose every game. So there you go.
So, but you don't have the same hatred for Philadelphia, which was like an hour away from you when you played in Washington.
No. So when I was playing, and the NFC East back then was just an absolute, cluster. Yeah. Everybody hated Dallas because they're Dallas, right? And I mean, nobody liked Dallas,
right?
I mean, my memories of going in Dallas, you sit in Texas Stadium, you're on the bench, and it's come up to the second concourse, TCBY yogurt, the official yogurt of your Dallas Cowboys. And it was just this never-ending stream of ads. And I'd be like, for the love of God, I'm trying to focus on a game. You're pushing food at me all the time, and I was 300 pounds. I'm starving here.
All right.
So anyhow, but Philly, in those times, Washington, when I was with Washington, we struggled playing the Giants. We just couldn't beat the Giants. But we handled Philly. And then Philly always seemed to beat the Giants. And early in my career, in the late 80s and early 90s, Dallas hadn't become Dallas yet, right? I mean, they were still struggling. And so my hatred for Philly wasn't that strong because we just went in there and opened a can of whoop ass on them all the time.
Do you remember the game that I know a lot of people when you talk to people back from those 90s era teams that they say the coming out party for that team was going to RFK, at the halftime Hail Mary. I think you guys were undefeated at that point.
We were 11-0.
And Dallas came in and won, and that was the first kind of signal.
With Berline came off the bench. It was Steve Berline, right? That came off the
91
bench.
It was Berline.
Yeah, they came off the bench because we knocked Aikman out.
Yeah.
And Berline came back and won that. And then the next year, that's interesting because the next year in 92 is I think the Cowboys went like maybe 7-9 or something like that.
No, 92 they went 13-3.
Oh, yeah,
that was the
92.
Super Bowl.
Okay, so that was 91.
Yeah, 90 was the year before.
Right,
7-9. 91 was their coming out party.
Yes, and so I knew they were like in 91. They beat us in that game, but you knew they were going to be like they were trending. And I'll never forget. I mean, this is one of my great memories of the Cowboys. I think it was 94 when Norv became the head coach. So Norv Turner left Dallas and became the head coach of Washington.
Yeah.
And I was a deep snapper or short snapper, not a deep snapper, so backup short snapper in case anybody there. So I had to go out a little bit early, and Dallas was out warming up. And I was just kind of taking inventory. And this is probably 93 or 94 maybe.
94.
And I'm taking inventory, and it was, I mean, your guys' offense was like, I don't know if it was Alvin Harper, or it might have been Harper, but it was Michael Irvin and Harper, I think. It was Jay Novacek at tight end. It went Mark Tuinei, Nate Newton, Stepnowski. I think it was before Larry Allen, so I think it was
Giesick.
No, it was. I think it was Gogan, and then Eric Williams, and then Moose Johnson, and Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman. I'm watching your offense just warm up, and I'm like, it just dawns on me as I'm watching it. I'm like, we don't have one guy on our offense who could start on this team. and I was like, we are going to get our ass kicked. And they just beat the snot out of us. We weren't very good, but I was like, son of a gun, we're going to get our ass kicked today.
All right, look, speaking of fights, I need you. Because last week, this is Mark Schlereth right here, Washington and Denver, great. Dan Orlovsky put out his top 5 all-time quarterback list. He left Montana off. He put Elway at 3.
Okay.
These two morons, and Brian Broaddus, a former NFL scout, have been screaming at how overrated John Elway was and is, and I am in Elway. I'm obsessed with Elway.
He's obsessed with arm strength. I'm obsessed with decision making.
Well, they totally changed their arguments. They discount the weapons before Rod Smith and Shannon, right? None of them could name a receiver that he played with.
Right.
He was the prototypical athlete. What do you think about the John Elway's overrated thought?
I think that the John Elway overrated thought, having played with him, he'd make up for a multitude of sins, but when things broke down, the dude was just balls. He was just all balls. And when you walked into the huddle, man, there was just a confidence about the way he played. And I think you have to really understand that he brought 3 teams to a championship game that roster-wise, construction-wise, they couldn't run the ball. Like, their idea of a power run game was to run the draw in a time where you had to run the ball. Like you said, I wouldn't say bereft of weapons, but nobody was a kind of a Hall of Fame caliber weapon with those teams. And that dude could extend plays and just make things happen. And you want to talk about a hose, man. I mean, you want to talk about throwing it on a line 40 yards across his body. So he was a phenomenal player and a great leader. And one of the things I love, people always ask you what it was like playing with him. And I was like, the only time he'd ever get on us, you could give him a hit, you could give a sack up. Only time he ever got on us was when the play got in late and we were like, hey, we got to hustle the line of scrimmage. He just didn't say boo. And, one of the toughest dudes I've ever played with.
Is he one on your list?
Listen, man, I can't argue with the success Brady's had. I can't argue with with Joe Montana. Like, Joe Montana is one of the few guys that ever got off the bench to watch. I'm fat and I'm out of shape, and I'm sitting on the bench, trying
about yogurt.
Yes, sucking eggs on the bench. And Barry Sanders, I got up off the bench to watch play offense. Joe Montana. And the thing about Joe Montana is the efficiency. He made it look easy in an era where it wasn't easy. And, you'd be like, how did they kick our ass today? We lost by 14. And you'd look at him at the end of the day, and he'd be 23 of 27, 278 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And it was just the efficiency with which he played, the accuracy with which he put the ball on the target.
So you would disagree with me when I say that John Elway is just a better-armed Ryan Tannehill?
Yes, I would disagree. I would disagree with that.
All right.
But you like it. You respect it.
You've been dominating radio in Denver, the fan in Denver, and we think that Sean Payton has made a tremendous mistake. A humongous mistake, because this Russell Wilson thing is not going to be salvageable. I missed on Russ. I thought y'all would be in the AFC title game with this roster and everything. And Seattle right now looks to just be proven right that the fall off has happened and it's not going to change. How are you feeling about this new marriage?
Yeah, I'm very excited for Sean Payton. I think the thing you have to understand is get in line or we're going to move on. And it's not going to move on from Sean Payton. They're going to move on from Russell. Mm-hmm. So the biggest issue is when you go back and you study what they did in Seattle, they created an opportunity for Russell to have success, basically saying this is what you're going to do. The whole let Russ cook narrative, like Pete Carroll squashed that because Russ can't cook. You're not Drew Brees. You can't operate that way. But Russ is still an effective quarterback given the things that he can do. And one thing that I've been friends with Sean for a long time. I actually consulted for the Saints in their running game. One thing Sean does exceptionally well is he will forego attacking somebody's weakness if it opens up one of his own weaknesses. So the first rule of game planning is mitigate our weakness before we attack theirs. And so he does a great job of saying, what is your skill set? We're going to put you in a position to do that. Now, Russ came in, and he came in with his entourage. He had his own quarterback coach that was allowed in the facility, blah, 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 blah. And honestly, Nathaniel Hackett, I think Nathaniel Hackett was emasculated before he was ever given the head coaching position. So I think Russ got to run the show the way Russ wanted to run the show. And, he Peter principled, right? He rose the level of his own incompetence. And that ain't going to happen under Sean. So I have some hope. Now I think you've probably overrated the roster. me personally, I don't think their offensive roster is all that it's cracked up to be. And I do think there's some guys who are going to have to switch positions to be effective. I think that Jerry Jeudy's a much better X when he's kind of X individual guy and he's the number one target in the route. Maybe move Cortland as a big receiver into slot, even though he doesn't have that quickness, use his body, kind of like what Larry Fitzgerald did at the end of his career. But they're going to have to make some changes.
Give us a final Cowboy thought.
Final Cowboy thought.
Where's he start?
I said after the season, I feel like we're trapped. Like, you're not moving off of Dak. Has Dak hit a ceiling?
Right.
McCarthy's not going to call the plays. I just, we're dealing with these idiots over here wearing green now.
Yeah.
Listen,
man, the Cowboys are still I think they're a really good football team. Dak just has to play with more consistency. And I think the other thing is you got to be able to take pressure off your quarterback. You got to give your quarterback some breathers. You got to give the really good coaches understand that you've got, your quarterback is going to be in charge and have to make the majority of all the tough decisions, 45 times during the course of a game, right? Can you take that down to about 25 times of stress and take some of that stress off your guy?
A lot.
And I think that's a big factor that Mike McCarthy and now Brian Schottenheimer need to look at.
Where's your salsa? You ain't out here? You're not no chili?
No, right now I've got this new app, The Stunt. And I don't know if you guys have talked about it, but this is for sports fans, The Stunt. And it's all your social media stuff. It's like putting Twitter, Instagram, your YouTube channel. It's like putting everything all in one spot for content creators. And so you know how everybody talks to you guys and everybody talks to me like, hey, you suck at calling games and you suck at radio and you suck at that. Oh, yeah? Well, come get a taste, because now we've got a app where you can be your own content creator and you can monetize the content that you create. So if you are all that, come jump on it. As we're just starting off, we just launched. It's like fans only page, but you don't have to show your yoo-hoo. Right?
That's half the fun.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what it's like. So check it out, The Stunt.
One of our favorite guests every single year, never have enough time. Mark Schlereth in the number one air hot seat on 105.3 The Fan. Thank you, brother. And you sitting down, got us cigars just dropped off from Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's my guy over there. So, yeah, absolutely. John Kincaid passed out the Philly cigars.
Yes, he did.
Cheers. They're handing out victory cigars. They think the Red Auerbach over there.